What kind of exercise-related goals have you set for yourself? A lot of people choose not to exercise when they don't have any associated goals because they feel like, well, what's the point? I'm not going after anything. But there are so many benefits that you can get from exercising, even if you don't have the traditional exercise-related goals. On today's episode of the Exercise is Health podcast, Julie and I dive into this topic and discuss what you get from a health perspective, what you get from a function perspective when you exercise that has absolutely nothing to do with the traditional exercise-related goals. We are going to cue the intro song and then jump right into this conversation. Welcome to the Exercise is Health podcast, where we're talking about exercise, health, and the interconnectedness of the two. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie,
and we will be coming to you every single week from our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Exercise is Health podcast. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie,
and we're coming to you from our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg, here in Schaumburg, Illinois. Now, at Muscle Activation Schaumburg, we believe your health is your most valuable asset. Your health is one of the biggest influencers of the quality and quantity of time that you have. And while there are many aspects of health, our expertise is exercise. Exercise has been proven time and again to not only increase your longevity, but improve your quality of life. And it is our belief that exercise is the single best thing that you can do to improve your health overall. Specifically, exercise that is geared towards improving the health and function of your muscles. Now, if you are looking for a way to be able to exercise on your own from the comfort of your own home using minimal equipment in under 20 minutes, then you need to check out the MAS at-home workout program. This program is specifically designed to improve the health and function of your body. And like I said, it requires minimal equipment. It requires minimal time. It requires absolutely no travel. So if this is of interest to you, head to homeworkout.matschaumburg.com to learn more and download your copy now. Now, today we are talking about an exercise-related topic, and that is goals. And a lot of times when people have goals, they think, okay, good, now I have a reason to exercise. And a lot of times the flip side is also true. When people don't have goals, they think, oh, well, I don't have a goal, so maybe I don't actually have a reason to exercise. And what we want to tell you today is your workouts are absolutely 100% not a waste of time if you do not have a goal that you're going after from a workout exercise perspective. You still need to be exercising. And that's what we want to talk with you about today.
I actually presented this idea to Charlie because I was, doing something around my house. And I thought about in my early personal training career, this thing that happened all the time. And if you talk to any trainer, probably Charlie included, they'll probably agree with me. So when you work at a big gym, you do a consultation with clients and you set goals because, of course, like the trainer and client should be on the same page, And the way we set goals was, we wanted to put numbers to it, right? Like, are we losing weight? Okay, great. You want to lose weight? How much? In how much time? Like, do we have 2 months to do this? Do we have 3 weeks? So it's measurable. And we also want it to be attainable. So there were all these measurables that we would set to set goals with new clients. And I almost usually felt like this goal setting situation that we were required to do when I worked at these gyms was a way to kind of sell the client. Oh yeah, let's get motivated on this thing. They want to lose 6 pounds. Why don't I map out a plan to help them lose 6 pounds, And oftentimes it was like only the people that had these types of goals, were signing up with trainers because, they had something in mind, like, training for a triathlon. I want to complete a triathlon. That's like a measurable goal, right? You guys get the picture. I would say that I was a very, very successful trainer at these bigger gyms. Actually, at the first gym I ever worked at, I was always the second leading salesperson, a second after the manager. So of course, he had more experience. And so I would say I was a very successful trainer at the time doing this technique. And I would say about 95% of my clients never achieved their goal. And what it ended up being was that as trainers, we kind of had to bank on this idea like, oh my gosh, we have to sell them, on signing up. And then once they've signed up, you just sell them on your personality, right? It's like, they just got to like you enough because they ain't doing it by themselves. So anyways, this idea kind of bugged me when I was thinking, well, okay, so does that mean that me and every other trainer that does this, which is the majority, are we all failures? Like, are we not doing anything for our clients? Are we sleazy salespeople that are like selling this promise that you're going to like lose weight or run the marathon without injury and blah, blah, blah? It really made me think about some stuff. And it made me want to talk about this on the podcast today, because I think the flaw in that whole story, where it would all make sense and say like, you guys are listeners. You guys know I'm a good person. I'm not trying to like pull strings on people or sell them on something that can't happen. But I think the problem with it is the goal setting in the beginning. It is the way that we were setting goals. And if you notice, all the goals that I listed were all very externally based goals. By the way, when you exercise, the thing that changes is your internal body function. But then we're measuring the success of the exercise by something external, like running a marathon or what the scale says for your weight. So I think we need to talk about, well, why is maybe not achieving your goal in the way that you saw it or in the timeline that you thought, especially if you have an external goal, because I know that a lot of people want to lose weight, want to get stronger, want to, perform in an activity. Those are all awesome. But we also need to talk about, well, why would it be incredibly beneficial to also exercise if you don't have one of these goals? Because now I would say in the way that I advertise myself now and the way that we talk to our clients now, I would say that very minimal of my clients have the same type of goals that they had when I worked at a big box gym, mostly due to me educating them. It's not like I have these new aliens that like somehow walk the earth and they find MAS. No, they're just like me and you, and they're just like the clients I used to train. But it's all about educating about what exercise does and doesn't do, and then how to map that out in your brain. Because wouldn't it be terrible if the only way you ever exercised was if you had a huge external goal? That would be exhausting to like have these things where it's like, okay, well, this year I'm going to lose 20 pounds. Next year I'm going to run a marathon. The next year I'm going to cycle in a 5K cycling. So I want to talk to you guys, or I want Charlie and I to talk to you guys about this blossom idea of setting goals and why it might not be the end all be all, and why exercising just to exercise is more than quote unquote just to exercise.
Yeah, it's such a great point because, my experience was very similar to yours when I worked in a big box gym and early on in my training career, right? Nobody really came to purchase anything from me as far as a package, sessions, anything like that. Nobody signed up for the free consultation just to be like, oh, well, you know what? I just want to kind of improve my health overall. And if that is what somebody said, my response was usually like, okay, well, what are some goals that we can hit along the way? So like, even if somebody approached me with that, my mindset was, okay, well, what can we measure along the way? Like, do you want to improve your strength? Do you want to lose 10 pounds? Can we take off some inches? Can we change your body composition? All these things, like you're saying, Julie, it's all kind of external stuff. And that's really what the fitness industry is built around, right? Because that is where a lot of people, where a lot of trainers and where a lot of exercise professionals find their value, is saying, well, I'm able to get people these measurable results. All right. And there's nothing wrong with measurable results. Measurable results clearly show changes, but there is so much more value to exercise that goes beyond what is typically measured for results. And that's really important for everybody listening to understand, is if you don't have any goals right now that have to do with measurable results, that's okay. Because when you exercise, you're still getting a tremendous amount of benefit from doing that exercise. So you should still exercise, even if you don't have goals that you would be considered traditional exercise or fitness goals, whether it's weight loss, improving strength, like you're saying, running a half marathon or whatever it is. If you don't have any of that, great. Honestly, most people get bogged down by those things. Most people lose momentum, lose interest, lose excitement because of their goals. And most people end up less healthy because of their goals. And we're going to explain all of that to you as far as why that is and what you can do about it to change that during today's podcast.
Totally. And I was just thinking, too, as you were talking, Charlie, you were like bringing some thoughts to my brain. I was thinking, I want to give you guys an example of normal people like you and me. We live normal lives, stuff comes up, stuff gets more exciting, less exciting. We get motivated, we get less motivated. But think about this. Like, if you could reflect back on, I don't know, the last 10 years of your life, think of all the ebbs and flows in your life and all the stressors. And think about maybe if you hired a trainer or, you got on some exercise program and you exercised through it all. So here are some stuff that's hard to exercise through. Let's say you had a job change and, maybe you lost a job, you got a job. But anyways, that's a huge schedule change and a huge stressor. Think about reflecting back on that and being like, wow, during those 3 months of that huge change, I exercised and I kept my body as healthy as it could through all that change. But through all that change, you might not have been able to sustain a weight loss goal or a training for a 5K. Or let's say you look back in this past year and you're like, dang, we had COVID still going on. I lost my gym membership, or I don't want to go to the gym, or I had to take a break or whatever. And guess what? I found a way to exercise through it all. I made the best of what I could and I'm healthier for it. Or you or your wife had a kid. That's a huge life change. Let's say you could look back and say, during that time of my life, I don't think I could have sustained an external goal, but I exercised through that experience. Although I don't have a number, I don't have a numeral or something to write down to prove that I did something good for my body. That's the kind of stuff that happens in your life, my life, all of our lives, all the time through the years. And all of these situations are usually reasons why people stop exercising, especially if they only can find reasons to exercise when they have an external goal. Because it's like, wow, I'm not quote unquote achieving anything because I've got this thing going on or I have this stressor going on. But that's exactly the times when you can look back and be like, I exercised through that. I stayed really active and healthy. And no, I don't have numbers to show you, but that is actually not even the goal of exercise. All these external things, that's kind of what we're alluding to. All these external things do not prove the quality or the benefit of exercise. Although it is the way that the fitness industry, especially on social media and the news, and want to advertise fitness to be. So just remember, you're a human. You've got junk going on. We've got junk going on. And what is so important is to show up to your exercise no matter what is going on and whether you have a number to achieve with that or not.
So let's dive in and talk about some of these benefits that you're going to get from exercising, even if you don't have it set as a goal. What are some of the positive things that are happening to your internal health and function that you may not be thinking about when you go to do your workout? If you're focused on burning calories, if you're focused on, sweating and getting your heart rate up and all those things, what are some other really cool things that are happening within your body that will boost the health and function of your body? And in my head, the first place I go is in terms of metabolic health and insulin resistance. For me personally, that's a really, really big one, okay? So what do I mean by that? Well, let's talk about what insulin resistance is, okay? Let's define that to start. So insulin resistance insulin is a hormone that helps your body take glucose that's in your blood and kind of shuttle it into your muscle cells so it doesn't accumulate in your blood, all right? So when your blood glucose levels start creeping up just naturally, that may be an indicator that you are starting to become more insulin resistant. There are other things such as when your body is having to produce more insulin to get these same blood glucose lowering effects, then that can also be an indicator that you are starting to become more insulin resistant. Well, here's the thing. Physical inactivity is a tremendous proponent of insulin resistance. And what's really cool, the flip side of that is also true, where physical activity is a tremendous proponent of insulin sensitivity. So with physical activity, you are combating insulin resistance. If insulin resistance is going on, you have the opportunity to potentially reverse insulin resistance. If you currently are not insulin resistant, you have the ability to prevent it from occurring in the first place. and you're going to improve the sensitivity of your body to insulin, okay? And this is done through a bunch of different ways. I'm not going to get into all of them, but exercise and specifically muscle contraction is the thing that's going to stimulate your body to start combating insulin resistance, to start improving its insulin sensitivity, which means your body is going to need to produce less insulin in order to maintain its blood glucose levels, which means all of the negative repercussions that can come from having chronically high blood glucose levels for an extended period of time, those issues, they can start to be minimized. Chronic health conditions such as type 2 diabetes, heart disease, potentially various forms of dementia that all come from, at least in part, a result of insulin resistance for an extended period of time, those can all be minimized or prevented or even possibly reversed. So there's so much good, there's so much benefit to being physically active throughout your day and getting your workouts in from a metabolic health and in prevention of insulin resistance and improvement of insulin sensitivity standpoint.
Charlie, I love that you brought up metabolic health because for two reasons. First, I do want to give us a shameless plug about this amazing podcast we did a few weeks back with Dr. Jody. And all she does is she only works with type 1 diabetics. If you want more information about all of this, you need to listen to her podcast, because oftentimes what we think about when we think about, oh, my blood sugars are creeping up, we always think about limiting the sugar in our diet, which is great. But also we need to train and condition our bodies to absorb this glucose. Definitely check out that podcast. But the second thing I was thinking when you were thinking about that, because remember, we're talking about what are these cool things that we get from, well, cool and life-changing, potent health changers that happen when you exercise that you don't even know about. If you're listening to this podcast, you're probably remotely aware of your health, right? You're listening to this because you probably searched health or, you know us or whatever. And most of the time when I talk to people in their mid 40s to mid 50s, and they come in to talk to me about exercising, they're like, well, I kind of thought that I was like mildly healthy or kind of healthy, or, I was watching my weight and watching what I do and stuff. I just couldn't believe that I went to the doctor and I did blood work and they told me that I was like on the verge of being insulin resistant or almost type 2 diabetic. Like they just couldn't believe it. And that happens all the time. And maybe you're listening to this and that has happened to you. So that means that while you weren't even aware of it, that was happening. When you exercise consistently, you aren't even aware that you're also combating that. So I just wanted to bring that to light, because the former happens all the time. But then we get this news that it's like, wow, there's a number that's telling me that, I'm not as healthy as I might think. Well, when you exercise, these types of blood changes happen without us even knowing. The cool thing with Charlie and I is that we get to get feedback from our clients. We work with them for years, and it's like, guess what? Finally, this has changed, and all I've done is change my exercise. So anyways, exercise is potent in changing your metabolic health. One thing, Charlie, you said, the first thing I think of is metabolic health. The first thing I think of that happens that you don't know about when you exercise without a goal or with a goal is preservation and improvement of joint and muscle function. Exercise, we all know, is usually known as like, oh, we're moving and stuff. But really what's happening is that we're contracting muscles. And so whether you're moving, doing cardio, doing weights, is you're stimulating and contracting muscles. The use of muscle tissue is really amazing at maintaining and improving the function of that muscle. So one thing that Charlie and I talk to our clients about all the time is we want to train your body to be the best body. That means, can we get your shoulder to be the most functional shoulder that we possibly can get it with just getting muscles to contract? And by the way, when muscles are contracting and controlling joints really well, the joint itself stays healthier. I think a lot of times we divide muscles from joints. Like, oh, I can't do this exercise because I have this joint issue. Well, squeezing the muscles around that joint will help keep that joint healthy. That's actually physically how you keep a joint healthy is by moving it. There are properties in joints, and the only way that we can preserve their function and quality of function is through movement and through this thing called imbibition, which is basically like smushing and rubbing in a joint. And so that's what happens when you exercise. So when you're exercising, you might not know this, and maybe you do know this because you've experienced it, but you are preserving or improving the function of your muscles and joints. Just last week, I actually had a client. She was like, wow, after our session, I felt like I could do the stairs so much easier and I could get in and out of my car so much easier. These things aren't things that people will come in and be like, so I have a goal. It's to get in and out of my car easier. Oh, some people have these, but but these are like functions of daily life that you get to preserve and you get to improve just by exercising, even when you don't have an external, measurable, grand goal that you get to brag about on social media.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that you bring that up, and it's funny not that you bring up the subject, but that how you prefaced it. Because in my head, I'm thinking, all right, well, clearly, like muscle function and joint function is a huge part of what we do here at MAS, what we do with our clients, and huge reason why we exercise. But like most people, when things are working well, they're not forefront of my mind, right? So for me, because I'm constantly checking in on my blood glucose levels, for me, the first thought that came to my mind was, well, I need to exercise to make sure my blood glucose levels are good. But to your point, yeah, muscle function and joint function is 100% up there as well. Now, one thing that I want to bring up in relation to that is the fact that not using your body is incredibly detrimental to your muscles and incredibly detrimental to your joints. And we hear it all the time where people come in, they're like, I don't know why my body feels this way. I didn't do anything. And Julie, you brought this up in the past, and it's such a great point, where just because you didn't outwardly do anything doesn't mean that your body didn't change. So actually, the not doing anything, that is doing something, and that right there is the issue. So it's not something where you're like, okay, well, I haven't been exercising, so I'm not getting the muscle benefits and the joint benefits. It's like, no, you haven't been exercising, which means, yes, you're not getting the muscle and joint benefits, but that also means your muscles and joints are getting worse. You're not just kind of staying the same and everything is status quo. You're actually getting worse when you're not exercising. Your metabolic health is actually getting worse when you're not exercising. So it's not like the idea of, oh, I'm just going to continue to skip my workouts and everything's just going to stay the same. It's not like that. You have to be exercising. You have to be moving. You have to be challenging yourself on a regular basis, and then that gives you the opportunity for everything to stay the same. And if you do it strategically, if you do it appropriately, you do it frequently enough and with enough consistency, then you have the opportunity to improve.
Charlie, you bring up a great point. At some point in all of our lives, our bodies are not naturally improving. At some point in our lives, we have to do something just to make it not decrease in function, whether that is physical function, like I brought up with like joints and muscles, or metabolic function, as Charlie brought up. So it is so important that whether you have an external goal or not, that you are showing up and exercising on a regular basis. But let's talk about what exactly that means. And I was thinking about this. One of our mentors, Tom Purvis, brings this up. And I think that the biggest difference here is we have to somehow figure out a way to become committed, even when we are motivated and when we're not motivated. I think a lot of us get waves of motivation, right? The biggest one being New Year. And I think the reason why is that because we're so comfortable, right? After Christmas time, after New Year's, we are uncomfortable, we're comfortable, meaning like we've filled up on all the sweets. We've actually maxed out on all the unhealthy food that we could possibly think of. We've also probably been cooped up inside, probably been really inactive. So we've maxed out, like our bodies are screaming at us to move. So it's so easy to get motivated to get moving and change our lifestyle. But it's important for us to exercise even when we don't have a big external goal, which a lot of people do have at New Year's. So what is it that we can do to get ourselves committed and not just be riding on waves of motivation? Waves of motivation are the things that get us going hardcore, and then we kind of drop off, and then get us going hardcore again, and then drop off. And then it's like cyclical waves like this. So here's a couple ideas is figure out what's going to help you get moving. Maybe you are a content consumer and following a podcast like ours, or, there's millions of other fitness podcasts that educate you on the benefits of exercise. Maybe that helps you just to have that in your ear once a week, thinking about exercise, reasons to move, reasons to take care of your health. That can be a great way to stay committed. Another thing is to find something you like. I think what's really important is not necessarily that you have to enjoy your exercise, but you don't have to love it every time. But what is something that you enjoy returning back to? It's usually going to be something that will help you move. A lot of people find like a sport or something, whether that's tennis, or I love cycling. I know Charlie loves weightlifting. So, that's his thing. Find something that you moderately enjoy doing, would be a good thing. And another one that I wanted to share that a lot of people dismiss is you can hire a personal trainer, hire someone that you have to be accountable to and that your money is going towards, because I think a lot of us value money more than we understand how to value our health. Because I think a lot of us haven't had like huge health scares where we're like, oh my gosh, my health is so valuable, because we've never experienced completely not having our health. And I think that usually shows us how important it is. Having money going towards something that you should be valuing is really helpful. I noticed that a lot of my clients, on the days they don't feel like coming, they're real people. They're like, just want to let you know, I don't feel like being here today, but I didn't want to get charged for the session. I'm like, sweet, love it. I'm glad you're here, because I know that if you weren't here and if money wasn't a thing, like you didn't pay for this session, you would not be staying consistent.
Yeah, it's such a huge point. Commitment really is the name of the game when it comes to exercise. And it doesn't mean that, like you're saying, Julie, it doesn't mean that there aren't days where you don't feel like doing it. It doesn't mean that there are going to be weeks where you're like, okay, I just need to go a little bit easier right now and kind of, get back into the groove of things. It doesn't mean that there won't be times where you're just feeling like, I would so much rather just sit on the couch and watch a show right now than get up and move around. But at the end of the day, like we've said so many times, you only get the health benefits of exercise if you do it. And you only get to keep getting the health benefits of exercise if you continue to do it. So it is incredibly important that you figure out a way to not only do it in the first place, but continue to come back to it, whatever you need to set in your schedule, in your day, with various systems, whatever it is for you that keeps you coming back and keeps you exercising on a regular basis. I mean, that really is the name of the game right there, is consistency, long-term, and making sure that you are exercising in a way that is sustainable for you. Because the other thing that we see a lot of times is people get excited about their exercise and their motivation feels like commitment, but it's there, I don't want to say for the wrong reasons, but again, for those external reasons, okay? Whether it is they're part of like a group fitness community, or they are part of, or they really like the music that's played in the classes, or anything like that, okay? And don't get me wrong, all of those things can be awesome variables that help you continue to come back to your exercise. But what we see too often is that people end up sacrificing their health in order to get that kick of the group camaraderie, of the dance club setting while they're getting their exercise. They can't wait to get another hit of that, and they end up sacrificing their health in the process of doing so. So I think that's a really big thing to understand, is find ways that whatever you need to do to keep yourself accountable, to keep yourself committed to your exercise, but make sure you're not sacrificing your health in the process.
Charlie, as you were talking, I was thinking about sharing this little perspective that I experienced. And if you're a woman that has ever had a child, you can maybe relate. Maybe you didn't experience it the way I did, but Charlie and I have a toddler. And I remember when I was pregnant. Here's how pregnancy works. For 9 months, your body gets bigger, less mobile, you get more swollen, your body becomes less efficient at metabolizing everything, and it just progresses for 9 months. Like there is no way to genetically change what's happening. Here's the thing: my hugest motivator was my perspective on it. I remember when I was pregnant, because I thought I absolutely cannot miss this workout, because I know tomorrow I'm going to be bigger, I'm going to be less mobile, I'm going to be more prone to swelling, I'm going to be more prone to gaining weight and having less mobility, less strength, because you're just getting larger. And it's just what's happening. And so I remember feeling I cannot miss this workout, because I'm not going to work out to try to combat those things, like make sure those things don't happen, because they are going to happen. But I'm going to make sure that I feel my best and try to stay my strongest and be as functional as I possibly can, even though I know this is going to happen. So our bodies at some point as we age are doing this very slow decline, kind of like pregnancy, except for like you got a lot more years in there. It doesn't happen over 9 months. When I was thinking like, what could get you committed? But is also having this perspective, like knowing that the only single human on earth that is responsible for you making the best of your decline, really, best of what's genetically happening to us all. We're all on the way to arthritis. We're all on the way to being less metabolically active and efficient. We're all on our way to less function. But what can you do today or this week that is going to help preserve that and lessen the decline? Because we know that most of our listeners, you guys are over the age of 40. That means you're past your prime physically, probably. Unless you've never worked out, you'll probably get a lot of improvements from starting to exercise. But it's what can we do to help preserve this so that you can stay at your prime for longer? And almost like, that idea, and I think a lot of like macho guys think this is like, just keep peaking. That means that just keep getting to your best. And guess what? You have the opportunity to get to your best given the circumstances that you're in right now. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about, man, maybe I shouldn't go to the gym today. So, I don't have the weight loss goal. I don't have the big motivation, but your internal function is relying on you showing up.
My hashtag that I've used on my last 2 birthday posts is like, never stop peaking, right? So so I'll throw myself in that macho group for right now, and that I'm totally fine with that. All right. So look, there are so many benefits that you can get from exercising that have nothing to do with the majority of the goals that people set for themselves when they go to work out. See, your muscle function improves, your joint health and function improves, your metabolic health improves. You also, things that we didn't touch on but are still there, your brain health and function improves, your cardiovascular health and function improves, your ability to recover from stresses in life and prevent injuries overall improves. All of these things improve with exercise. They are all things that most people actually don't set for themselves as goals, which is completely fine. But they are all reasons to make sure that you continue to exercise on a regular basis. So who do you know that needs to hear this episode? Who do you know that is concerned because they feel like, I really don't have many exercise goals. So I just feel like I'm not that interested in exercising, but I know I should be exercising. Share this episode with them so they can learn about things that are happening within their body to improve the health and function, have absolutely nothing to do with most exercise goals. And it may be the thing that helps kind of push them over the edge and starts to get them exercise on a regular basis. And while you're online, head on over to iTunes and leave us a rating and review. It helps people find this podcast when they're looking for information on exercise and when they're looking for information on health. So if you found value in this conversation today, let us know by leaving us that 5-star rating and review. And make sure to subscribe so you get every single one of our episodes going forward. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. We always appreciate it. Have a fantastic week, and we'll talk with you all next week. Hey there, it's Charlie again. One last thing. I want to let you in on a secret project that I've been working on for quite some time now. I am planning on releasing a book by the middle of summer 2021. But here's the thing, because I'm self-publishing this book, there's only going to be a limited number of copies available at any given time. So to learn more about this book and to be one of the first to find out when this book actually gets released, what I need you to do is go to exerciseforlifemethod.com. There you'll find out more information as well as some exclusive bonuses that I'm offering just for simply staying in the loop with what's going on with this book. So to learn more and claim your bonuses, go to exerciseforlifemethod.com, enter in your information, and you'll be automatically kept up to date. Learn all about the book and bonuses at exerciseforlifemethod.com. This podcast is for information purposes only. The statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Julie and Charlie Cates, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements or advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical issue, consult a licensed physician.